VENUIQ, the award-winning UK-based event platform, are proud to partner this podcast series. We really hope you enjoy it, and when you're done, head over to VENU-IQ.com to find out all about our on-demand event builder service, featuring fully branded native apps and hybrid web platforms created in as little as 24 hours. We believe in live events and getting your audience to the most important content, sponsors, exhibitors, and opportunities as quickly and as easy as possible. We don't believe in gimmicks, so you won't find any avatars or digital buildings anywhere in sight. VENUIQ had already won awards for Best Conference Technology and Best Use of AI, and that was before we added registration, live streaming, one-to-one video meetings, video breakout sessions, and much, much more. Simple, transparent pricing that won't blow your budget from a UK-based team who really care. At VENUIQ, we work to ensure your event, whether live, virtual or both, can be a monumental success in this brave new world. That's VENU-IQ.com. Enjoy the podcast.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever and whenever you are tuning into today's podcast. Today, Richard Belcher of First Sight Media is joining me on the podcast. Richard is a long-term partner and friend of mine who's helped us deliver successful Event Tech Live after Event Tech Live, helped us with all our live streaming, our filming, our recording, all that good stuff. But obviously at the moment, First Sight are helping many organisers deliver their events online and in the future, obviously, as hybrid events as well. So Richard, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Adam. Thanks for having me. My second visit to the podcast, I have to say.
Yes, definitely. So before we get into, obviously, the nuts and bolts of what we're here to talk about, give us a little brief history of how you got into the event sector and what First Sight Media does.
Wow. So I joined First Sight in 2006. Seems like just yesterday, but 2006, and pretty much then all we did was graduation ceremonies. We produced graduations and then DVDs of that, and we sold. Well, in fact, it was VHSs as well as DVDs in those days.
Yeah. And
then I kind of helped spearhead the growth into the corporate sector. We still do a lot of graduations. Graduations is still a big part of our business, but we've now moved into the Event Tech Lives of the world, the conferences, the exhibitions, and the general video production stuff. I think video production is kind of where I started, and so where we've always been keen on and delivered lots of that, whether it be for a promotional video for a pharmaceutical or a university or anything like that. So the event sector is our niche. Video streaming events, as you'll see on my logo and throughout, is our thing, is our niche, and it is quite a specialist environment. And we've got thousands and billions of hours of all those things, so we're pretty well versed in that. So that's where we came from. And then obviously, as you say, in the last few months, we've changed that slightly. We've not really. I don't know if I would describe it as pivot, but we've definitely adapted our solution to be more in line with the virtual stuff. We've been doing hybrid things for forever. In fact, the last shoot before lockdown was a hybrid event. So we're used to doing lots of things, and yeah. So I guess that's where my specialities come in. As you can see, I'm actually in our studio now because my office is being renovated, and I've committed the cardinal sin of video production, and I've put a window behind me. So please do as I say, not as I do. I'm used to being behind the camera, not in front of it.
To be fair, Richard, though, this is a podcast, and we do get people that watch, so most of them will be listening, and Richard does have a very, very impressive background and studio. So if you are interested and you are listening, you want to have a look, jump onto the video. But it's a podcast, mate, so it doesn't matter, right?
Right. In that case,
audio quality only.
Great.
So to your point, then, I guess the wider industry has obviously had live taken away from them, and virtual is the thing. And maybe to the world, it seems like all of a sudden this is a new thing, right? Like live streaming content and putting it online and letting people engage with it. But it's not, right? I mean, like you said earlier, this is something that you've been doing with us at Event Tech Live and many others for many years, especially the hybrid side, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's really not a new thing. And I think industry has struggled to come to terms with, and if I may say, you and Paul occasionally with the Event Tech Live stuff have occasionally struggled to come to terms with the fact that, you know, that streaming and video is kind of here to stay. And I think if there's one benefit to come out of the whole lockdown, I don't know if I'd call it a benefit, but is that people have had to embrace it, and so have started to realize the potential of it. You know, we've been streaming stuff since I started in 2006, and, you know, YouTube isn't new. You know, it's not been having it's got more than 1 billion hits a day now. You know, streaming content is not a new thing. It perhaps in the way that people are having to do it now is new to a lot of people, but the video production companies and streaming specialists like First Sight Media we've been doing this for ages.
Yeah, I keep saying to people that I engage with is that, you know, companies like yourself, the knowledge, the experience of being able to take an event online has been around forever. For me, actually, the situation that we're in is somewhat our own fault, in that we've not embraced that way of working enough. We've not spent enough time developing our own knowledge and our own skills around it, our team skills around it, investing in companies like you around it. We've always seen it as a nice to have, not necessarily a necessity. We get the point of pointing cameras at people on stage and putting them on screens, right? But then we've not, as an industry, really en masse taken that step further and gone, let's put it online, because there's let's the elephant in the room, audience attrition, right?
Yeah.
We feel that if we push stuff online, we're going to get less audience, and wow, has that never ever been more to the other contrary right now? Like, we've seen events online get tens of thousands of people engaging. I was speaking to a speaker the other day that speaks at events, generally in front of a couple of thousand people. He started doing LinkedIn lives because he got access to that. 20,000 people per live stream he's getting. So it works. It's not an audience. I don't think it's one or the other. I think they can work symbiotically.
I agree, and I think if you behave in a way that you think it's going to be one or the other, then it will be one or the other, because you'll. But I think what we've seen in lockdown is that people are starting to do hybrid events in such a way that the virtual side of it is as important as the offline side of it. And I think once we get that mentality of, okay, well, I've actually got two events going on here. Yep. One of them is online and one of them is offline. When we eventually get back to the offline situation, which hopefully will be soon, you just have to deal with them in different ways. And then, because there's always going to be people that can't, you can't fly across the world to get to this two-hour event, for example, because it's not feasible, it's not realistic. But what you're doing by not streaming some of this stuff, and I'm biased because I run a video streaming company,
of course, yeah.
But what you're doing by not streaming it is actually losing the audience that you might have had, that would be happy to tune in online, but not willing to give you the footfall.
Yeah,
so,
no, I agree with that. Yeah,
yeah. So it's very much a double-edged sword, but it needn't be. Is kind of what I'm trying to say.
My point is, I think that, let's take an event like Event Tech Live. It's in London, so it is easily accessible, and we tend to get quite a good conversion rate. So 60% of our audience always turns up year on year. But that means 40% have not turned up. So why have they not turned up? Well, it's not because they weren't interested, because otherwise they wouldn't have registered. Other things get in the way, right? Life gets in the way, family gets in the way, work gets in the way. So events are quite a big ask when it comes to, please come and spend hours of your working important life with me at an event and talk to my exhibitors or sponsors or engage with my speakers and such. And you rightly said just then, sometimes that's not the whole entire event that person is interested in. Maybe it's just that one key session or that one key person that they want to connect with. And we as an industry have kind of put this barrier, this Great Wall of China in place that says, no, you must come over the wall in order to participate. Where for me, coming from a digital world like Event Industry News, I try and push my content as far and as wide as possible to get it into the hands of as many people. And that's what's created the success of Event Tech Live, is because we've built a digital audience there and been able to filter them down. So I think there's a massive opportunity. If we can get over that hill of thought of going, oh, well, if I put it online, people aren't going to turn up, then I think we're going to have a much healthier industry going forward, because we'll be able to reach more. We'll be able to then drive those online viewers hopefully into physical attendees in future events. Like, there's no denying that the value is still in people meeting up, and otherwise we'd all just drink at home, wouldn't we, on Zoom? We won't meet in a pub. It's the kind of same scenario.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what to say other than yes to all of that, Adam. That is all exactly the sort of thing that I've been saying for 10 years probably. Yeah. And it's taken this pandemic for other people to start seeing it too. And I've been drilling that into you for at least 5 years. So I'm good to see it's paying off.
I'll be honest with you, I think I was more on board than maybe other people in my organisation, not naming no names, Paul. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a fear that's there, and I think now has unfortunately been one of those moments in time where, like you said, there is no other option, so we have to move forward with something. People are now going through the process. I'm sure your customers are telling you this, like, how do we monetize this? Like, how do we make this pay for us? I've heard one really large organizer do an online event, and they were like, honestly, Adam, I made $3,000 out of it, which is not sustainable. On the other side, I've had organisers that have done a lot of online events, and that will forever be a part of their portfolio now because they made money out of it. And actually, they got speakers involved that they could have never, ever got to their physical event because they could beam them in. So are your customers saying the same things? Is it more about monetization and investment that they just don't get a grasp of at the moment?
I think, yeah, and I think that's a lot of the reason why they haven't done this before. You know, the 10 years that I've been banging the drum, a lot of the reason why they haven't done this is because the model that they've got is based on people coming through the door, right? It's people turning up at the Truman Brewery or wherever, and you know, and going that way. I think what they're starting to see is that actually there's different ways to monetize these things, and it's very difficult to charge for a live stream of something. It's very difficult to have something that's strong enough that people are going to put their hand in their pocket and actually pay for it, because there's so much stuff that's free, right? So you can access so much stuff that might be on the same subject, but it's free. So what we're talking to a lot of our customers about, and what our customers are starting to see in the last few months, is, well, actually, what about sponsorship? So there's some logo here or a logo there. Or what about if exhibitors have a different sort of experience than the physical stand at the exhibition hall? You know, how can we engage with them in a different way? And I think there's a lot of thinking outside the box, and a big dose of it, in fact, everywhere now, where they're starting to see, okay, well, actually, that's not going to work, but what would work? And the thing is, there's so much technology out there now, you pretty much deliver anything you want. It's just about having that unique idea that's going to help engage your event differently than everybody else's event, or as effectively as everybody else's event, at least.
I think you're absolutely right, and obviously, as a publication that is supported through advertising and sponsorship, ultimately to get eyeballs to turn into customers and leads and generation, that makes sense to me, because I could, and it's quantifiable, right? Even after the show, if you go down the road of and let's be honest about it, companies like Coca-Cola and Monster and Sony and Samsung, they invest huge amounts of money in eyeball marketing. Like, that's how they work. I mean, they've got the budgets for it, but as organisers, we can go down that same route as well, right? We can go, okay, maybe we do the first one, and then we've got some numbers, right? We can say our live stream last year was viewed by 5,000 people from 47 different countries. They make, on this platform, and we can put a value against that. That ultimately could pay for all of your services and give them money and make it work, right?
Absolutely. I mean, we did a stream 2 weeks ago through Facebook, 36,000 connections, and actually, I would argue, and I'm not going to name the name because I'm about to say something derogatory, I would argue they didn't advertise it particularly well, and yet they got 36,000 people tuning in. If it was my brand that was part of that 36,000 people, I'd be delighted with that. And I'd probably be willing to pay a little bit more next time. So I think there's, like I say, it's just about thinking about it differently. Yeah. And if eyeball marketing, I'm going to steal that. I hope that's okay. And if eyeball marketing is the answer of how we start to deliver these things and still monetize, great. You know, and as long as if your aim is to put something in front of people's eyes, that needs to be good, and it needs to be engaging, and it needs to be something that they're going to want to keep their eyes on and not just tune out, because it's such a flooded market at the moment.
Yeah, and I think from the way that if I was discussing it with an exhibitor like yourself at Event Tech Live, I would say think about it as an additional investment into to draw further people to your stand or your session or your booth or whatever else is going on. Like bring the call to action or give something away, maybe a guide to monetizing online events, and that's something that people want and download. But invest in it a little bit, like the same we would with PPC and Facebook advertising and LinkedIn advertising, right? When you've got some content that you know is valuable to somebody, on the whole, people tend to put a little bit of investment behind it to get the visibility on it, to get the traction, to get the data capture, and then they turn that into business afterwards. Yeah. And I can totally see that working going forward.
Yeah, and if it's brand recognition you're after, then this is going to tick the box, right? And even if it's just a soft sell, you know, it's a little logo here, it's a little logo there. That's something. And sure, you might not be able to charge the astronomical amounts of money that you were charging at your exhibition, but you know, you have there's much more opportunities in the virtual space because you're not restricted by number of stands that you have available. So I think people just need to start shifting their mindset a little.
Yeah.
And actually, as I say, the technology's out there and the deliverables are there. It's just about tracking them in a different way.
I agree with you. I guess just picking up there, because I think this would be an interesting tidbit from your perspective before we move on to cash, because I want to talk to you about cash as well. You mentioned Facebook there with 36,000 views. There's Twitter, there's LinkedIn Live. I mean, we could even go down the route of YouTube and Twitch and on all these kind of platforms. What's the one that you would gravitate towards yourself, Rich? Is there one that seems to perform better in terms of that reach?
It's a really difficult one to answer. And actually, at last year's Event Tech Live 2019's, I did a talk on a similar subject about picking your message and picking your platform for it. I used the example of the Fire Festival going through Instagram because that was their chosen audience. You know, the sort of early 20s, late teens. And I think we stream over all of them. We have our own platform that we stream across, and we stream through Facebook, YouTube. YouTube does seem to be the most stable most of the time. The next YouTube event I'm going to do is going to crash now. Just don't get me wrong. But I think YouTube and Facebook are probably the two of the social media channels that I would probably recommend if that's what you're after. But I really think you need to think about what you're trying to achieve with your live stream. And if what you're trying to achieve with your live stream is to get as many eyeballs on your event as possible, then why wouldn't you do all of them?
Yeah, I think, and especially if you are charging people sponsorship, right, then you might as well, you as an event, as a brand, as a corporate, you've probably got a Facebook, a LinkedIn, a Twitter, a YouTube channel. So yeah, collectively get all those eyeballs together, and surely you've reached a wider audience in that. And sense.
I think there's an extra point about that, which a lot of people at the moment, and indeed in the past as well, are putting all their content behind the registration wall or behind the paywall or something like that, and that drives me insane because you need to showcase what you're doing, and so there should be at least a tidbit that's okay. Here's our keynote session. Watch how awesome this is, and that then might encourage the click through to actually put their hand in their pocket. But if you're locking it all away, how are they going to know what it looks like first?
Well, that's it. They've got to either be on a database to get an email, and you've got to do a really good job of going, please register, come along. And there's so many, there's the fear of missing out, isn't there, which we can play on with live streaming, which is like, this is happening right now, and here's a little glimpse behind the curtain of what you could get or what you could have. And yeah. I know that's our plan for Event Tech Live, isn't it, Rich? That we are going to use live streaming as ultimately like our 8-hour TV advert, right? That we don't have to pay BBC, or like BBC don't do adverts, but ITV an enormous amount of money to get that 3-second clip on their channel. Yep. Like, we know we've got audiences on there. We've got Event Industry News with 55,000. We've got loads of followers on LinkedIn and Facebook and all this kind of stuff. So for me, live stream becomes our this is a highlight reel, and here's some live stuff from the event. Here's a live speaker. Here's a free session. Not that we're charging for Events Tech Live, but here's a session, a keynote speaker. Like, keep coming in, come in. And then once we've got them in the platform, they can engage with other attendees. They can engage with exhibitors like you. That's where the value is. It's our attraction of to get them in.
Yeah, and it's exactly what we've done at ETL for the last 2 years, actually, and that we've picked specific sessions in the day to stream live, and we've pushed those out, and we've pushed highlights videos out. But the conversion for all that has always been to get more feet through the door the next day.
Absolutely.
So when we send out the highlights video at 4:30 on the end of Wednesday, it's to try and show people what they're missing, so they come on Thursday. But what is changing now is it's trying to get them to do the same thing, but to click on the platform where all the content is. And so, like I say, it's just about shifting that mindset, and that's a great example of how easy it is to do. Really.
Yeah, and it's easier to get somebody to click on a link and register for something for there and then than to get them to turn up to an event tomorrow that they weren't really necessarily maybe planning on going to, right?
Exactly, especially if what you're showcasing on Facebook or YouTube or whatever is the sort of quality that you'll be streaming from Event Tech Live, because we're doing it.
Interestingly then, it's just come to me, Rich. Do you think in the future people will invest in having a specific stream based on platform, based on persona?
Yeah, possibly, because I think what I was saying earlier about how it's important that you treat them as two separate events to some extent. So you've got the hybrid content, or the virtual content and the offline content, as two separate streams. I think it might be that the natural progression of that is more targeted content that's targeted at an online viewer that's looking for X or Y, in the same way that when you're planning your offline event, you target a specific audience. That there might be some content that's out there for free, and it's maybe some of it's great and some of it's average. Yep. But then there's the paid for stream. All of it's brilliant. Yeah. And so it might be doing that, but it's about encouraging people from one to the next. And a lot of what we've done at ETL, for example, we do have other customers. I want everybody to know, but it's just a good example because we can both talk about it. What we've been doing that, and then obviously the end of Thursday and throughout the year until the next event, we're teasing all that content again. We're reminding them what they're missing and what they would have seen if they were there. There's the catch up Thursdays, I think it is, that you guys do with all that stuff, and it's just a way to keep your event alive throughout. Which is really interesting, which is really different and unique.
Yeah, and that brings me on to quality, which we'll come on next. But for those that are listening and watching, I don't mind sharing that through Richard being able to produce a really high quality content post-event as well. And I think that's really important. And actually get it up onto our YouTube channel sometimes on the same day, right, mate? It's not like it takes weeks for it to come out. Not only has that provided me with something really digestible to market out to my audience consistently through the year, 52 weeks a year until the next event. So it's part of my keeping my event brand alive and in the thoughts and minds of our audience. But we sponsored it. We sold that opportunity to a customer to say, listen, this is what our plan is. This is a 52-week marketing campaign. So every time we push this to our audience, which is going to our newsletters, our socials, our database, your brand is going to be there, and that can be changed and swapped out. And I know you guys have got your brand on the end of our videos as well. Like, it's just that constant message, and it can drive money as well. So it can be something that it's worth investing in the up in the front, because you'll be able to rev drive it out the back end, and if not, pay for the whole thing as it goes along.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of the buzz at the moment is about platform, and there's so many platforms out there now, and there's so many that are really good as well. Don't get me wrong, but I think there's a misconception. There's a misconception out there that getting the right platform is the main job and the only job. The problem is if you've got the right platform, but the content that you're pushing to it is really poor, that's the difference between a great online event and a rubbish online event. if for me.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I've interviewed event organisers recently who planned on doing it themselves and at the last minute brought a company like yourselves in, and I've turned around and was like, that was a close shave, because if we to try to do it ourselves. And I liken it to me getting a venue, Truman Brewery, or a platform, and then telling my team, right, now go and set cameras up and film it and live stream it, please, or do it all yourselves. Like, we don't have that skill set. Most event organisers or event owners probably don't have that skill set and certainly don't want to do it. So why are we treating it differently to the online world, where we're kind of like, well, as long as we've got a platform and we can plug Vimeo into it or YouTube into it and switch a camera on, how hard can it be? Like, we wouldn't do that in the real world, would we? On scale events, at least, anyway. And I would never dream of doing that at Event Tech Live. So for me, that the investment has to be in production quality, post-production quality, on-site management, because it's not just you, the guys that turn up with cameras and you point them and you go outside and have a fag and a coffee, do you? It's like you're working consistently through the event to make sure that everything's tied up with speakers and streams and content and everything.
And it starts long before that, Adam, as well, because a lot of what the benefit of bringing a company like First Sight Media is that we've got so much experience. We've got experience of all sorts of events. So whatever type of event you're looking for, chances are we've done that or something like it. And also chances are we know the technology much better than you do, because it's our technology. You know, we use it all the time. So if you engage with us early, you engage with a production company early, you're much more likely to get a better result at the end. And I think typically in the last 5 years, the video production side of it has been that, I've got a bit of budget left, I'll maybe get someone in to do it. And with the virtual events in particular, that's a really terrible thing to do, because if you get a good production company in early, whether you're looking at virtual or hybrid, if you get a good production company in early, we can help steer you down the right direction. And it, so for example, I hope you don't mind, I'm going to use the example of about 3 months ago, you, Paul and I, and Paul and Ash from my team, we jumped on a Zoom call and we talked and we thrashed out how it might work. And I said to you, Adam, what do you want? What are you trying to achieve? What do you want? You know, the Simon Sinek, start with a why. Why not? What are you trying to achieve? And we said, well, okay, this is what we did for another customer that's very similar to what you're after. Does this tick the box, this tick that box, and this tick that box? Oh, okay, there's a box still to tick. Okay, what if we do this? And what if we draw in this? And what if we pull this in? You know, and it's every little detail from, you know, oh, you want to do Q&A and polling. Okay, well, we can recommend Slido or Poll EV or whatever. And it's all those sorts of details that really you shouldn't be doing. You're an event organizer. You should be concentrating on the content of what your event if it's going to look like, and, you know, liaising with sponsors and all that sort of stuff. Let us handle the technology. That's what we're here for. That's what we're really good at. So I think, again, massively biased, but I couldn't agree more about it being really important to engage with a good production company early. You'll end up with a better result, for sure.
I agree, mate. And don't get me wrong, you know, there's been a part of the industry that have been hopeful that live comes back before they have to go down the online route or the hybrid route. And let's be honest about it, we're recording this on the 21st of August. In the main, most events aren't going to come back till 2021, at least Q1. And this is the world that we live in now. Like you either have two options. You either work and do stuff, or you wait. But that has also obviously put people under an immense amount of pressure of waiting, and then having really, really short lead times, right? So I want to talk to you about one of the misconceptions, because you mentioned a great one before we started talking, and I guess it's around planning as well. But can you share your biggest misconception that you kind of come across when you're dealing with people who are inquiring?
Yeah, the worst one is, okay, well, I've got my agenda, so I'm just going to stream it. It's just I held my head in my hands there for those of you that are listening, because it's a very different way of consuming content online. And so you can't take your 8-hour agenda and just stream it. I mean, you can, don't get me wrong, actually, you can do that, but you're not, it's not going to be engaging. And what's really important in these difficult times, or whatever the term is that there is a saturation of this market, and there is lots of content out there and lots of things that you can see. So what you need to do is you need to make sure that every single minute of your live stream is gold. Okay, and I don't mean it's good, I mean it's gold. Yeah. And so if you've got 8 hours of content, which is what, maybe a 90-minute presentation followed by a 30-minute panel discussion followed by another 90-minute, that 90-minute presentation should be 15 minutes, right? It should be no more than that. It should be 15 minutes, and it should lead on to something engaging. You know, panel discussion is a great example of engaging online. And so you can't just take 8 hours of presentations, because the term death by PowerPoint has never been more appropriate than it is in the COVID-19 virtual environment, because people will tune off. And it's so easy when you're staring down the barrel of your laptop. It's so easy to just go, oh, I'll just check the BBC website, and all of a sudden you're tuned out and you've gone, oh yeah, I was watching that thing. Oh well, I'm doing something else now. So you need to keep it constantly engaging, and there's some great ways to help with that, you know, such as I mentioned Slido before, and you know, polling and quizzes and all that sort of stuff. There's some great way to do it, but if your content is laborious and relentless, you're gonna lose people quick, because there's so much else for them to do.
I heard of a crazy one the other day, which was an organizer that delivered something in the region, I think it was 6 hours on a weekend,
right, with
no agenda, just speakers and content. They were like, when's the content on that I actually want to watch? Like, is it at the beginning of the event? Is it towards the end of the event? I think they thought that like it would almost force people to stay on. But at the weekend, mate, I've got not only work stuff obviously bubbling in my head from the week before, what's coming up next week, but family and friends and rum and all those other distractions.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean? It's like, so I totally agree with you. I think condensing content down. One of the best presentations I felt that I ever delivered, I was given 7 minutes. Right, 7 minutes to deliver a presentation, and you cut the crap. Like, you really do. You get to the point. And I think almost having shorter snippets online, but more content, but you can still fill the 8 hours, right? But you can do other stuff and do some fun stuff. Like, I want to see more people bring a live stream a DJ at lunchtime while everybody's wanting to make a sandwich or something, like, because people still need to eat, right? Why are we streaming content through the times when we know people want to eat? Like, let's have a break or a coffee break or do something fun, like, I don't know, do a cooking show, make an omelette, show somebody how to do that.
But it's exactly the point that I'm making to all our customers at the moment. Someone picks up the phone and says, we want to do this. And it's all about having a hook. What is the key reason that I'm going to tune into this? And is it because there's a celebrity speaker in the second half of the content? Is it because there's a panel discussion with some really important key figures in your industry that you're desperate to hear from? What is the hook that's going to drag people to your event? And that's always been the case, whether it's offline or online. It's been the same thing. Like, what's the drag? The drag to EventTech Live is that you get lots of event technologies all in the same place and you can enjoy it, right?
Yep.
So what's the hook for your online event? And there are some cheeky little ways to deal with that, like having a cooking show or a quiz or whatever it is, but it's all got to be good content, because otherwise by the time they get to the hook they've tuned out and you've missed that boat.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you got any really cool tidbits or anything that you've seen that you want to share? Any secret sauce that you might give away as a bit of a way to add that golden touch?
Well, I mean, like I say, celebrity speakers are always a good one. We've done a couple of awards shows with Dara O'Brien did one, and Stephen Mulhern. They were fantastic. Anything's going to be fantastic. It's got catchphrase in the middle of it, right? But the principle is a simple one, and it's just have little nuggets of things that you wouldn't think of. A playing catchphrase in the middle of an awards show with a couple of live speakers is just a great way to keep people engaged. And it might be that you've done 5 or 6 awards, so people have started to sort of drift off a little bit, but boom, you just change the pace. You completely pivot on that, and you do something completely different that wakes them back up again, and they're ready to watch the next 4 or 5.
Yep.
So it really depends on the event, but yeah, there's lots of ways that you can do these things to make it interesting, but keep it interesting. That's the key.
You've heard it here first, mate. I'm going to do the Big Event Technology Awards quiz and break up because and just on awards formats, like, let's be honest, everybody that organises them, everybody that attends them, they're not the most exciting of things unless you win. Yes, brilliant, you've won an award, fantastic, woo, get behind the bar, get the champagne going. But on the whole, because the format is so restrictive, right, that you have to sit there and behave and listen to the awards. But like breaking stuff up like that and having chats and things, because that's one of the things you can't really do at awards, is it? You can't really chat to other people and stuff like that. So, but maybe with the technology and the platforms now, you can have that cheeky banter with the person that's online would have maybe been sat 4 tables away from you, and you just never got the chance.
Exactly, yeah. Dara O'Brien made a G&T mid show.
Awesome, mate. And you know what?
A science trick.
I would imagine as well for the organizer that was probably, again, more cost effective because they didn't have to get them to travel, they didn't have to put them up in a hotel overnight. You know, Dara can go back and sit on the sofa after eating a bowl of nachos, watching Netflix, and he's all good, right? So for him, it's actually he probably do more less stressful work overall. And I would imagine that the organizer probably got a better rate out of it than dragging him to London or something like that.
Yeah, and also they didn't have normally they have a massive hotel that they'll put loads of people up, and then they'll hire the biggest space in this hotel. They had none of those costs. So the other point about monetization is you've got to consider what you're not spending as well. So if you're still able to engage with your sponsors and therefore your attendees and all that sort of stuff, you might only be able to charge them, half of what you charged them before. I don't know, I'm plucking numbers out of the sky here, but half of what you charged them before. But you're probably spending a third or less, because if the venue and the catering is the most expensive part of your event budget, well, that's gone if you're doing it virtually. If you're doing it hybrid, that's different. But yeah, you got to look at the whole picture when you're thinking outside the box.
I wonder what you think as well. Like and this is something I've discussed with other industry peers, and we can definitely see it as a format going forward. Generally events revolve around an industry, and that industry is very rarely localized to one particular country or area of the world, right? Like, let's take the Event Technology Awards. We have customers and companies from all around the world participate in those awards and ultimately come to the event. I can see a future that's hybrid, which is kind of like a multi-spoke, multi-hub, maybe one centralized event. Maybe that moves around, so it doesn't necessarily always have to live in London. Maybe it can move to these other countries. But then a way for people within certain regions to be able to still connect physically while watching the live stream, while still engaging on apps and bits and bobs of chatting to other people in London or wherever they are, and still having that the best part about physical, which is coming together in pockets, but still engaging with this big event. And that's really maybe where the power of online and live streaming really gets unleashed, is connecting people up in pockets, but still bringing them together themselves.
Yeah, it's the barrier of geography that live streaming really helps. I mean, one of the first things that we developed a solution for is virtual graduations, because of course that's what we do, and I think we've got 55 university clients, and they were all looking to us to go, what do we do? Yeah. And so we created a solution whereby all the graduands are able to dial in. And we can see their faces, and they can chat with their peers in a virtual environment, and then we cut to them when their name is announced. So it's the same as an awards show. You could do the same thing, and we do the same thing all the time. But it means that you've got the opportunity when we start to get back, and I think we can all agree there's not going to be a magic point where we go, oh, it's the 1st of January now, that's the end of that, we can all crack on. There's going to be times where, taking the graduation example further, where, okay, so let's say we do a graduation in March time, And all of a sudden, the graduates that were going to attend from Italy are back in lockdown, so they can't come. There's got to be a way that we can still bring them in, and that's something that that our virtual graduation solution has been able to bring in, because we can easily flip it to hybrid, and we can flip it on a knife edge. So if it's literally 2 days before and they say, okay, Italy's going into lockdown, we'll need to bring all these people in, that's fine. So I can't remember your question, and indeed I've answered it, but my point is there's always the technology there that you can still deliver whatever you want.
Yeah, I think what I'm taking away from that is the technology can be the backup, the plan B to anything like coronavirus, travel restrictions, whatever it is. Maybe it's got a more positive spin, which is those organisations, the industry just wants to be a little bit more sustainable and support sustainability and inclusivity. We don't talk about, we expect people to come to a physical event. And I know of many people that are able to get to a physical event, but it's a challenge, getting on transport, getting to the venue. Truman Brewery is not a wheelchair-friendly venue. You as an organizer, you have to go above beyond. The person in the wheelchair has to make some compromises because they have to be brought up in lifts and things like that. Like, what about inclusivity? We and sustainability. That is something that live streaming content really can help with, because then they don't need to go through all that process to get to a physical event and can still engage in it and do it. So that's a good enough reason for me personally to see this as part and parcel of how event organisers ensure that they provide a platform that is fair and considerate to everybody that might be in their demographic of audience.
Absolutely. Inclusivity is a key one as well. And the other really important one is about that people don't always think about is that if you capture that footage well in the first place, you've then got it to use again and again and again. We mentioned the ETL replay stuff is a good example of that. But if you and I'm going to go back to using a production company now, but if you don't use a production company and the quality of your stream is poor, or your quality of your captured footage is poor, it's not going to have the same value to you moving forward. Whereas if you've got that high quality stuff, let's say, for example, you did an event. Well, let's stick with EventTech Live, right? So let's say you weren't doing EventTech Live in November, which hopefully we will. In fact, we definitely will be. You've still got all that content from last year and the year before and the year before that you can keep. You can keep your brand alive, and you can keep your event alive because you've got this great quality content. That's the same. As soon as you've captured it, you've got it. Just keep hold of it and just repurpose it, reuse it. You can use it for to help you monetize. To continue to help you monetize even after your event is finished.
Yeah, there's a great organizer out there called William Thomas. Some of you might know him. He's been delivering online events for years. He takes some of his live content as well as his online content, and he kind of repackages it into a course that people can follow, because that's how good some of the content is. But he doesn't just take it and go dump it online and off you go. He thinks about how that's being curated into these like small mini courses. And I think they're super accessible. I mean, they're like £49 or something to access a 6-session course or something. And that will literally take you through one aspect of whatever it is he's doing. And that, to me, is, for him, a great way of repurposing that content, a revenue stream, and a really nice, accessible way, because he's packaged it up nicely to go, if you want to learn about this is the 6 videos that you need to watch or learn about. If you want to learn this is it. And it's pockets of sessions and stuff from all different types of events brought together. And that, to me, is where event organisers need to start thinking like media companies. They need to stop thinking about that one moment in time, and they need to think about what are we creating and how can we extrapolate things from all of that. But it always has to be backed up by that quality, right? Like, if it looks crap, if it doesn't read well, if it doesn't sound great, people are going to switch off. It's as simple as that. Or it's going to be a detriment to your brand ultimately, because it's not what people expect, especially if they're investing a fair chunk of money in accessing that content in the first place. And
they're going to associate that with your event moving forward. If that's the quality, they're going to associate your event with that kind of quality moving forward. But curation is a really great word there. And if you think about it in a way that you're curating this content, you wouldn't go to a library and look at a delicate book without a pair of gloves on. Why would you film something yourself without getting someone in specialist to do it? And it's, not the greatest analogy, but I think my point is that if you're going to want this moving forward, get it right first time, and then you won't have to be polishing it or trying to polish it to move forward with it.
Okay, so that brings me on to probably one of the biggest points, but how much? Like, what should people be thinking about when they're investing or trying to budget for this as part of their event? And I know it's a bit of a like, well, how long is a piece of string? Because how many cameras do you need? What all that kind of stuff. But I know, like, from again coming back to what we've got planned, we're as an organizer, we're investing ahead of the event in actually doing some pre-records and having that done professionally rather than just relying on the speakers because that will have a benefit to us post-production when it actually gets presented to the audience, won't it, in terms of quality? Yeah. And then I guess is it just a virtual event? Is it a hybrid event? And all that kind of stuff. But honestly, Richard, like, smallest figure to largest figure, what should people be really considering, or how should they budget for it is probably more the important question.
Well, I think the easiest way of how you should budget for it is to engage with someone like First Light Media early, and then we can give you some options and we can give you some solutions and we can help you steer that budget. But you want some numbers, so I'll give you some.
I do.
So if you're thinking just virtual, the cost is generally much better because we can do it from one of the studios like the one behind me, for example, and you can be talking as little as kind of 1,500 quid to anything as much as 1,500 quid for a day to 25 grand for the week or anything like that. Yep. But it really is how long's a piece of string. But then when you go into hybrid, the costs do go up a lot because you've got an offline team that are capturing that stuff offline, but then you've got a virtual team that are delivering that virtual element. So all of a sudden you're doubling your money a little bit. But again, you're doubling your audience. So it's 6 of one, half a dozen. But I mean, I think anything from, if you've got a smaller event and you just want a professional videographer to come and capture your one stage or do a highlights video properly, you could do it, 750 quid, you could get easily deliver that for that. But then, you can go to town and, someone like First Light Media we can do all the bits. So it's not just the video side of it. We could do your staging for you and you're this and you're that and your other. And so all of a sudden you can be talking, 50 grand for a really good event. But, I mean, I think a fair budget, if you've got 5 grand in your pocket, you'll get some good deliverables for that, I think.
Yeah, and at the moment, considering the environment that we're in, like, every penny counts, right? I appreciate that, but when it comes to the representation of your brand, the quality, the decreasing stress level of trying to do something yourself, or worse, doing it badly, like, that investment, I think, is worthwhile. And we are in the business of selling sponsorship and eyeballs and all that kind of stuff to our customers. So we should absolutely be able to sell this. I mean, you mentioned 50 grand there. I'm thinking, right, okay, if I was charging something 50 grand, what would I expect them to achieve in a level of exposure? You'd probably break it down so there'd be a number of sponsors, make it a bit more palatable, or offer it to one person to take any potential competition and all that kind of stuff out of the way. But a Facebook live stream of 36,000, is it really that much of an ask to say, well, listen, how much would it cost you to reach all of those? Is it a pound an eyeball? Are they highly engaged audience? And you're pretty much all of the way there to covering the cost of it, right? If you can monetize it afterwards. Do you know what, Rich? We should probably do an article on all the ways that you can monetize film and live streaming at your event, and just give them a list. And I'll put prices next to it of what they should be charging. Because I think, just off the top of my head of what we're thinking about Events Tech Live, 50 grand, I'm not saying it'd be easy, but it's definitely doable to sell that on a sponsorship if you broke it down or packaged it up as resale opportunities or certain content as VIP access, and that's a paid for thing. like that's achievable.
But it goes back to the original part of this, you know, the start of this whole conversation about what are you trying to achieve and how are you going to achieve it. And if your sponsor is trying to achieve 36,000 eyeballs, they're done. If your sponsor is trying to achieve something different, then you might sell them something different. But there's always going to be a sponsor that is looking for 36,000 eyeballs, and so there's always and it's about, again, it goes back to the beginning point. It's about thinking outside the box, and how can you convert the new way of doing things, or the new way that you're looking to do things, into something that is, you know, hard cash, which is what we're all after, right?
Okay. Yeah. Absolutely, mate. Well, cash maybe not so. I don't.
It's really rum for you, I know. Yeah.
Do like can I do contactless payment? Can I just
Sure.
tap to pay?
Yeah.
Richard, one of my final questions for you is, and it's a bit of a crystal ball thing, so I appreciate it's a really hard one, but what do you think is the next big thing? What's coming in live streaming or online events from your perspective? What are you excited to see happen, whether it's from a format perspective or a technology perspective or the ability? Like, where are you at as a supplier? What's on the horizon for you?
I'm really excited about the virtual space at the moment, and because I've been banging this drum for so long, and finally it's starting to happen, and because people are doing it, it's evolving relentlessly, and it's the evolution of the hybrid and virtual event in the last 6 months has been far better than it has been in the last 6 years before that. It's fantastic, and so so much so that some of my customers are saying, okay, well, this went so well that I think what we're going to do is every other year, one will be virtual, then it will be offline, and then it will be virtual again, because the amount of money this has saved me, it just makes perfect sense, particularly when you're talking about internal audiences and stuff like that, where the eyeball isn't that important. But I think there's some really, the platforms are up in their game, the streaming platforms are up in their game. And indeed, our clients are willing to take more risks and therefore deliver more success. And I think that's just going to keep going for the next six to 12 months, when hopefully the virtual or hybrid element of events will be here to stay.
I don't think we've even hit the tip of the iceberg when it comes to online and virtual events. I think that they've been tarnished with the webinar brush, the crap online slide presentation, person on the front end of it. Now, obviously, we're in this phase of professional people who run businesses figuring it out, because they've got events to facilitate and businesses to stay healthy. But I think online events will blow up and be absolutely dominated by content creators, by publishers, by magazine owners, by website owners like Event Industry News, by the guys on YouTube, because they've got audience already. And what better way to spin up revenue and community by producing online events? Now, you mentioned YouTube earlier. Like, at the moment, the content creators on YouTube are slaves to Google, because their revenue comes through them. Google decides how much of a cut they get based on what niche they're in. They don't have direct communication with their community other than putting videos up, because they don't really data collect unless they've got like somewhere else. Now, and this goes for podcasting, and it's all encompassing. Like MKBHD, which is somebody I'm a massive fan of, he's a tech YouTuber. He was started at 17. He's now amassed an audience of 10 million, right? Are you telling me that he doesn't have the technical ability and the team in place to be able to produce an online event? Of course he does. And he has direct access to people like Apple and Samsung, so he could get the sponsorship for it as well. And then he can control that. And I think that's potentially the biggest challenge that some of these live streaming platforms have to overcome. Yes, they can be the platform in which they reach an audience, but there's all this technology out there that those content creators can take that audience away from their platform and monetize it.
But so it goes back to my point. It's about eyeballs, and it's about a hook. And so if you've got that audience already in play, whether it be your through your YouTube channel or through your Event Industry News subscribers, whatever it is, if you've got that audience in play, use them, but make sure there's a hook to get them in and keep them in.
Absolutely. All right then, mate. Final question for all of those listeners and viewers that want to book you tomorrow for their events or for Q1 events. Where's the best place to connect up with you guys and talk about their own requirements?
Well, obviously our website, firstsight.media, you can find all the stuff there. We're on LinkedIn, we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter. All those things is very simple way of getting hold of us. We're kind of everywhere. Or, you know, head
that's
to
the way you're supposed to be as a
VENUIQ.
live streaming company, mate. You're supposed to be everywhere. That's how it
Exactly.
works.
Yeah, quite right.
Rich, thanks for coming on today. I'm sure there's going to be another one in the pipeline that we'll talk about in a few months once a few more of these online events have been produced and ultimately when hybrid events, because I think that's also when things are going to change again once hybrid comes back into play, once we can do physical and live, right?
Yeah, 100%.
So,
yeah.
thank you very much for coming on today, mate, and we'll
Pleasure.
catch you in the next one.
Take care.